The Shepherd family is scattered by war. The war hit the family hard. Most of the young men enlisted in Virginia units. R.D. had to recalibrate his business strategies. In June 1861, the war was just getting underway. A Richmond, Virginia newspaper reported that R.D. directed his nephew to pay over a large sum for Confederate forces to protect his New Orleans properties. In the spring of 1862, when Federal General Nathaniel Banks with his army entered into Jefferson County, R.D. took refuge in Boston with his daughter, helping to cement his status as a loyal citizen. As the war progressed, its maw of destruction came closer to Shepherdstown's nearly complete building. 130,000 troops moved in the area in September 1862 for the bloody Maryland campaign just across the Potomac River. Wounded from the nearby battles poured into Shepherdstown, putting the unfinished town hall into service as an outdoor hospital. Wrote Mary Bettinger Mitchell, "The unfinished town hall had stood in naked ugliness for many a long day. Somebody threw a few rough boards across the beams, placed piles of straw over them, laid down single planks to walk upon, and lo, it was a hospital at once. There were 6 churches, and they were all full, the barn-like place known as the drill room, all the private houses after their capacity, the shops and empty buildings, the schoolhouses, every inch of space. And yet, the cry was for more room. We went about our work with pale faces and trembling hands, yet trying to appear composed for the sake of our patients, who were much excited. We could hear the incessant explosions of artillery, the shrieking whistles of the shells, and the sharper, deadlier, more thrilling roll of musketry, while every now and then the echo of some charging cheer would come borne by the wind. And as the human voice would pierce the demoniacal clangor, we would catch our breath and listen, and try not to sob, and turn back to the forlorn hospitals, to the suffering at our feet, and before our eyes, while imagination fainted at the thought of those other scenes hidden from us beyond the Potomac. Had General George McClellan crossed the Potomac and pursued General Lee's scattered and mauled army, as historians have much criticized him since for not doing, Shepherdstown would have likely suffered greater damage, but, as it was, shells landed in the yards of the Lees and Morgans, and 1 or 2 even hit Shepherd's new town hall, but were of little consequence. Property losses in New Orleans. More invasive, improvised use was being made of R.D.'s fine residence at 18 Bourbon Street in New Orleans, causing his nephew to formally appeal to the federal powers that be in early 1864. He wrote General James Bowen, the federal provost marshal general for New Orleans, that a man named Horton or Houghton had been living grandly in R.D.'s home ever since June of 1862, almost 2 years, for free, while wrecking the place and profiting therefrom, advertising it as a boarding house, and more. Like the town hall, the huge, magnificent Almshouse in New Orleans remained unfinished, to be hit by a worse fate. Shepherd was charged by Turow's will to first put $80,000 towards its construction. Then he prepared to put more money into its construction, including even some of Shepherd's own funds, as recipient of Turow's residue. On September 1st, 1865, at a time the Almshouse in New Orleans, still with an unfinished floorless top floor, was occupied by detachments of the 2nd Maine Cavalry and Company K, 1st Louisiana Cavalry. A baking oven was in heavy use at one end of the building so that heat would be carried through a fissure in a ventilation system close by. The fire started in the rafters above the 3rd floor. It was nighttime with a high wind and no flooring yet laid for the 3rd floor in that wing. Coals dripping from the fire then ignited tar on the lower walls. "Baked beans fired the building," said one from the 2nd Maine Cavalry. The building was uninsured. Just a few months later, D.Shepherd died of typhoid fever, November 10th, 1865. No longer the executor of the estate, leaving no philanthropist to help make up the loss. Wrote the editors of the New Orleans Times-Picayune in a long obituary. In his native village, he erected a splendid building designed for a town hall, also a large academy with beautiful grounds and a walk. He also deposited with the mayor annually a large sum to buy fuel and provisions for the poor. He also erected the largest and most costly church in Jefferson County. Many other acts of public and private benevolence were performed by him in his quiet, furtive manner. With war ended when he was still healthy, R.D. had urged that his town hall become the county court, since the Charlestown courthouse was a battle-scarred ruin, especially from a shelling it took in the fall of 1863.
Though their voices are silent, their pleading looks will say, "Oh, hard times come again no more." 'Tis the song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more.
A visitor contemplates Charlestown's ruined courthouse in mid-1865. A short walk up into the center of the town took us to the scene of John Brown's trial. It was a consolation to see that the jail had been laid in ashes, and that the courthouse, where that mockery of justice was performed, was a ruin abandoned to rats and toads. 4 massive white brick pillars, still standing, supported a riddled roof through which God's blue sky and gracious sunshine smiled. The main portion of the building had been literally torn to pieces. In the floorless hall of justice, rank weeds were growing. Names of Union soldiers were scrawled along the walls. No torch had been applied to the woodwork, but the work of destruction had been performed by the hands of hilarious soldier boys, ripping up floors and pulling down laths and joists to the tune of John Brown. The swelling melody of the song and the accompaniment of crashing partitions, reminding the citizens who thought to have destroyed the old hero that his soul was marching on. It was also a consolation to know that the courthouse and jail would probably never be rebuilt, the county seat having been removed from Charlestown to Shepherdstown forever. say the resolute, loyal citizens of Jefferson County, who rose to vote it back again. Rezin Davis Shepherd was buried in the family burial ground along with who died of disease and wounds while in Confederate uniforms during the war. He left all his fortune to his daughter, who since 1855 had been a widow. The visiting journalist Trowbridge was proven wrong. The county seat did go back to the Charlestown courthouse, wrote the editors of the Charlestown-based newspaper The Spirit of Jefferson in 1894. The Normal College building, formerly the Town Hall on Main Street, is a handsome structure, the gift of one of the Shepherd family, Rezin D., from which the town takes its name. You will remember that it was used as a courthouse since the war, and the courts of Jefferson County were held there. A political rape was perpetuated on Charlestown. The party in power, fitly termed radicals, thought they had a sure thing of it, built a jail, and added a wing to either side of the town hall. But the best laid scheme of mice and men gang after glee. The fellows that did all this mischief were turned down by the people, and things took their normal shape, and Charlestown was again the county seat. Shepherd University began when the county seat of Jefferson County, West Virginia, was moved from Shepherdstown to Charlestown in July 1871. On February 27, 1872, the legislature of West Virginia passed the following act: that a branch of the state normal school be and the same as hereby established at the building known as Shepherd College in Shepherdstown in the county of Jefferson. R.D.'s descendant, Shepherd Brooks, made it final when he deeded the property and building over to the school and a 3-person board of trustees to maintain it. As they say, settings reverse. The tides of life had gone out and came back in again.